This is the second lecture in the ratings unit, and we're going to jump right into the material here. Now, ratings and shares. Rating is what we know as a viewing household per total of TV households. Okay, the terms ratings and shares can kind of be confusing. Ratings refers to an estimate of the number of households tuned to a specific channel, and it's expressed as a percentage of available TV owning households. Okay? So again, ratings refers to an estimate of the number of households who are tuned to a specific channel, expressed as a percentage of available TV owning households. Available TV owning households. Now, we'll differentiate from share in just a second here. The average 2007 2008 primetime rating for major networks was 5.5. So looking at that, we see that the network would generally have 5.5% of the available audience. That's audience who owns TVs. Not necessarily would be watching them at the time, but who at least own them. Okay? This includes any household that's owning a TV set that might not be particularly watching it at the time. Just for reference sake, the most successful program of all time was the final episode of MASH. That was in 1983. It had a 60.2 rating, meaning that percentage of people who owned TVs was watching at least part of that program at some point of the night. Now, ratings of 20 used to be fairly common. More and more entertainment choices have become available, and network ratings have dropped. Now, a share is an estimate of the number of households tuned to a given channel, expressed as a percentage of all those households actually using their receivers at the time. So again, ratings refers to a percentage of available TV owning households. Share is the estimate of number of households tuned to a given channel, expressed as a percentage of all those households actually using their receivers at that time. Share is always larger than rating. And HUT refers to households using TV. That's the mechanism that is used to measure share. In radio, they use what is known as a cumulative, or a cum, which is the number of different listeners over a week's time. A person who listens to the same radio station 3 times in a week is counted only once towards the cum figure, just as a person who listened to the station once would be counted just the one time. So the cum figure shows how many different people tuned to the radio station during a given period. In this case, we're looking at a week. Now, demographics, or demographic breakouts, divide overall ratings into subgroups like men, women, teens. Most ad agencies target buying airtime on programs that reach their desired demographic rather than spending money to reach a large audience, a large generalized audience. So advertisers would really rather have an audience of moderate size with the right demographics, people who are more likely to buy their products, than they would having a huge audience that contains a lot of people who may not be as interested in their products. Sets and saturation, set penetration. The most basic statistic about broadcast audience is set penetration, or what is known also as saturation. That is the percentage of all homes that have broadcast receivers, such as TVs or radios. And most homes have several radios and more than one TV. One study says there are at least as many TV sets as people in the United States. So basically, for all practical purposes, we have saturation or set penetration at 98% of the United States. So for all practical purposes, the entire U.S. population constitutes a potential broadcast audience. Now again, HUT, we talked about HUT. HUT measurements is houses using television. Those measurements tell us, on average, the percentage of TV households actually using sets at different times of the day. And set use typically starts out in the mornings at about 12% of houses using television and climbs to about 70% by the 8 to 9 p.m. Central central time slot of prime time viewing. So again, 70% of households are usually watching TV from 8 to 9 p.m. And viewing also has not just times of day that it peaks, but also times of the year. It usually peaks in January and February in the winter months, and then bottoms out in the summer months, such as June. Time spent viewing or listening. The total amount of time that people devote to television serves as a broad measure of its audience impact. Now, critics have said that any activity that takes up more time than sleeping, working, or going to school, as television does for many of us, has profound social implications. So as technology changes and new generations of consumers begin using media, new habits are developing. We're watching typically more and more television and listening to more and more radio each successive year. The average hour and minutes per week spent viewing in 2006-2007 was 31 hours a week of TV time. And radio time spent listening in 2007 was 19 hours per week. Cable audiences. Cable viewership is on the rise, and it now regularly exceeds the collective audience levels of broadcast TV across virtually all segments of the viewing day. In 2007, cable networks had a 56% share, whereas broadcast networks had 42% share of the viewing audience. Recording devices, how do we rate them? Well, in 2007, about 27% of U.S. households had a DVR of some kind, either TiVo or some other kind. And Nielsen is trying to figure out better methods to rate the use of recording devices. Now, we still have about 95% of nationwide viewing is live, but DVRs are starting to change that trend. And Nielsen produces audience estimates for time-shifted viewing. Remember, we talked about time-shifting devices, such as DVRs. And Nielsen is estimating that in ways that account for various patterns of viewing that this time-shifting allows. Nielsen's also now working on average commercial minute ratings. So they're actually gauging how many people are watching commercials, how much coverage is a commercial actually getting. Now, because of all of our time-shifting devices, which let us skip commercials, zip or zap them, these are causing large problems for broadcasters and cable, because really, if too many people are skipping over those commercials, why would advertisers actually continue to advertise? That's why Nielsen is starting to look at average commercial minute, or ratings of how many people are actually watching a particular commercial. And lastly, we're going to look at just a couple of terms about internet measurement. Companies provide what is known as web traffic analytics to inform their clients of user activity on particular websites. Okay? They use site metrics and page level metrics to track anonymous movement of visitors. Okay? They want to know who's looking at their sites, who might be looking at their banner ads, and how much they can charge for ad revenue. Some units of measurement are visitors or hits, repeat visits versus unique visits. So is a particular person coming back to the same site time and time again, or do we have a lot of new people coming in just once? Average page views, average duration of the page visit. So does someone just come in and just glance around, not even have time to look at a web banner ad? And then also advertising click-throughs. Another focus of internet measurements is user-centric data, which tracks internet activity by installing a device on computers of willing volunteers.